Hello and welcome to the 100 Movie Marathon channel. Before I get started with the video, you may be asking yourself, why is this man wearing a Christmas Pug t-shirt in his video about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness? And the real question is, why aren't you wearing a Christmas Pug t-shirt right now? Yeah, exactly. The hard-hitting questions over here. I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting really excited for the Multiverse of Madness coming up in May. Doctor Strange and Wanda Maximoff have to be two of my favorite characters in the entire MCU. So the fact that they are coming together for this hodgepodge of craziness directed by Sam Raimi of all people, in my eyes, there's no way this movie isn't great. These are two characters that have been around for 6 to 7 years, and a lot has happened in their storylines up to this point. So rather than you have to go watch several movies and also a full-on TV show, I thought it'd be easier just to make a video with all of the relevant information for these two characters before you go in and see Doctor Strange 2. So here's what this video is going to look like. I'm going to run through everything that's happened with Doctor Strange thus far leading up to the movie, and then I'm going to go into Wanda Maximoff. And there's a lot to cover with these two characters, so let's go ahead and get started with Doctor Strange. Before I go in too deep, this video is going to be full of spoilers, so if you haven't seen the MCU, you've been warned. I'm going straight in. Stephen Strange was one of the best surgeons in all of New York until a car accident hurt his hands, leaving him unable to perform surgery again. This led him down a path to try to find any way possible to heal his hands so that he can reclaim his previous glory. Eventually, he makes his way to Kamer Taj, where he is trained in the mystical elements. Essentially, he's trained to be able to manipulate reality and also cross over into different dimensions, along with other weird stuff. I still don't really know the lengths of his powers, but he can do a lot of freaky things, basically. Throughout his solo movie, Stephen is shown to be kind of egocentric and full of himself, and eventually he is shown to be humbled by his experience becoming a sorcerer and eventually defeating Dormammu, which is a huge villain. However, his path in his first film isn't without ruffling a few feathers, particularly those of Carl Mordo, a fellow sorcerer of his. By the end of the film, Mordo ends up going on his own path, and it's kind of alluded to in the trailers for this film that he is our primary antagonist. So yeah, basically in his first film, he goes from an egocentric person, like I just said, into someone who has a lot of power and is going to use it for good. The next time we see Doctor Strange is in Thor Ragnarok, and it's not a big scene. He just helps Thor and Loki find their father, but I'm just going to say that so that we can establish that he has met Thor and Loki up to this point. We don't know who's going to show up in Multiverse of Madness, so if they do and he just knows who they are, that's why. Okay, next we have Infinity War and Endgame, and he actually has a big role in Infinity War. Doctor Strange teams up with Spider-Man, the Guardians of the Galaxy, and Iron Man as, I guess, the Space Avengers to try to defeat Thanos. And the things that you absolutely need to know from Infinity War are that Strange gives up the Time Stone to Thanos as it's part of the one timeline in which the Avengers could possibly defeat him. And Strange, along with half of the entire universe, gets dusted for 5 years. So he's basically absent for all of Avengers Endgame until the very end, whenever he helps the entire MCU basically defeat Thanos once and for all. After Infinity War and Endgame, we next see Doctor Strange in Spider-Man No Way Home. And the consequences of this movie seem to be highly influential in Multiverse of Madness. It's discovered that since he was dusted for 5 years, Doctor Strange is no longer the Sorcerer Supreme, and instead we have Wong stepping into that role. Yeah, I haven't mentioned Wong yet. Wong is the best. I love Wong. He's basically Steven's sidekick, I guess, but honestly, Wong is too good for that sidekick label. He's the dang Sorcerer Supreme going into this movie. I'm going to show some respect. I love Wong. In No Way Home, Doctor Strange tries to bend reality for Peter after his identity is exposed by Mysterio. However, while performing the spell, Peter interferes, and instead of everyone forgetting that Peter is Spider-Man, everyone who knows Spider-Man from all sorts of multiverses get brought into this universe. By the end of the movie, Doctor Strange is able to correct the spell and send everyone back to their different universes and actually complete the spell that was initially going to be cast, and no one remembering that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Doctor Strange's actions in this film get alluded to quite a bit in the trailer for Multiverse of Madness by Mordo. So if I had to guess, Mordo is trying to battle Steven after he bends reality one time too many. Now, very briefly, I am going to go into What If, the TV series. This doesn't follow our Stephen Strange that I've been talking about at this point, but a alternative version. Basically, in What If, the series asks the question of, what if... Yeah, that's right. What if one scenario were slightly changed and how that would branch off into a different multiverse? And in Doctor Strange's episode of What If, it asks the question, what if his girlfriend Christine Palmer were in the car with him whenever he had his accident? And instead of his hands getting hurt, it was his heart, because Christine dies in that accident. So in this alternative universe, Steven still goes on a path leading him to Kamar-Taj, except instead he is fueled by trying to bring Christine back to life. This leads him down a dark path in which we get Evil Strange, or at least that's what I call him. I don't know what the official term is. Basically sucking the power out of all sorts of multidimensional beings. And this is all in hopes that he can become powerful enough to be able to bring Christine back to life. Because no matter what he does with the Time Stone, he just can't manage to do it. I forget the term that they use in the show, but Christine's death basically has to happen in order for Doctor Strange to go on to do the things that he's going to do. So no matter what he does whenever he travels back in time with the Time Stone, Christine dies in some way. What ends up happening is Steven is powerful enough to bring Christine back to life, but only for a little bit of time as he destroys his reality as a result. Eventually, Evil Steven is redeemed whenever he assists the Watcher in saving the entire universe by the end of the show. And the reason why I bring up that character is I think that's who is at the end of the first Multiverse of Madness trailer. Like, am I crazy or was that not him? So what's important to know is that version of Steven is exponentially more powerful than the Stephen Strange that we have in the MCU. So if that guy's arriving on the scene, he's supposed to be good now, but I wouldn't really trust him if I was MCU Steven. So yeah, that is Stephen Strange up to this point, so let's get into Wanda. Wanda Maximoff is first introduced in Avengers Age of Ultron as someone who, alongside her brother Pietro, has been given unique abilities by Hydra. Or at least that's what we think up to that point. She can essentially manipulate all sorts of energy to her will, and I guess she can also perform telekinesis. There's all sorts of stuff that she can do. I think Maria Hill summed it up perfectly in Age of Ultron whenever she just said that she's weird. Essentially, what we learn about Wanda in Age of Ultron is that her and her brother have a deep resentment for Tony Stark after one of his weapons was used on their hometown and ended up killing their parents. So this is why they decide to team up with Ultron to destroy the Avengers until they figure out that Ultron's version of destroying the Avengers is by destroying mankind. So after discovering this, Wanda and her brother end up helping the Avengers defeat Ultron, except Pietro's life is lost in the battle. So already Wanda is being shown to be someone who has a lot of grief written up in her. She's lost both of her parents and now her brother. The next time we see Wanda is in Captain America Civil War, where she is now a full-on member of the Avengers. However, it's shown that Wanda's almost too powerful for her own good after some of her actions result in the death of civilians. This results in what are called the Sokovia Accords, which are designed to basically put the Avengers in check, and they can only go into battle whenever the UN says that they can. And Wanda is held under house arrest with Vision as her guardian, and she might have feelings for him. Wanda is eventually able to escape the compound and assist Steve Rogers and his band of the Avengers against the Accords, against Tony and his faction that are for them. By the end of the film, Wanda is captured and arrested until Steve Rogers comes and rescues her along with the other band of Avengers that were on his side. This leads us into the events of Avengers Infinity War, where Wanda is a fugitive on the run. Now, Vision was on Tony's side of the Accords. However, it is discovered in this movie that he's able to sneak away from time to time to see Wanda, who he is now in a full-on relationship with. It's shown that Wanda and Vision are clearly in love at the beginning of Infinity War, and it honestly is pretty sweet. However, their little relationship is interrupted whenever Thanos' henchmen come and try to steal the Infinity Stone that's lodged inside Vision's head. Thanos obviously needs the stone in order to wipe out half of life in the entire universe, so the Avengers cannot let that happen, but they also want to save Vision's life. So now Wanda and a bunch of the other Avengers have to go to Wakanda, where Shuri thinks that she can get the stone out of Vision's head. This would allow Wanda to destroy the stone and also keep Vision. Unfortunately, time isn't on their side, and Thanos shows up before they can actually separate Vision from the stone. So with Vision's approval, Wanda destroys the Infinity Stone and kills him. This is obviously a really emotional moment for her, as she just had to kill the person she loves. However, Thanos uses the Time Stone that Doctor Strange gave him to reverse that action and end up taking the Infinity Stone out of Vision's head after all. And you have to feel bad for Wanda at this point, because she was just forced to kill her boyfriend only for it to mean nothing and for him to die at the hands of Thanos anyway. And like Doctor Strange, Wanda is dusted for 5 years until the end of Avengers Endgame, where she assists the rest of the Avengers in destroying Thanos once and for all. And next we get into probably the most important thing to watch before Multiverse of Madness, WandaVision. And in this show, we alongside Wanda discover that she has only scraped the surface of her powers in the MCU thus far. Basically, in the show, she creates a reality within ours out of grief using a hex where her and Vision live in basically a sitcom type of world and are allowed to live their lives together. They even end up having kids that have superpowers. But none of it is real. Wanda created this sort of reality and is using the people who actually live in that town as her sort of puppets. They are literally trapped in their own bodies while Wanda gets to live out, I guess, her fantasy. Some real dark supervillain stuff. However, a dark witch named Agatha Harkness infiltrates this world to learn how exactly Wanda is controlling the town. And Harkness learns that Wanda is able to channel chaos magic. Chaos magic is extremely rare and allows the user to be able to alter reality. And the only person who is said to be able to do that is known as the Scarlet Witch. For a good chunk of the show, Wanda doesn't know that she's doing this, but even after she figures out what exactly it is that she's doing, she doesn't stop it. Harkness tries to strip Wanda of her Scarlet Witch powers. However, as you could predict, Wanda is way too powerful for her and ends up defeating her. Wanda does realize at the end that she needs to put an end to the ruse and free the town people, but this results in her losing her Vision as well as her 2 sons. So now you have a character who has lost both of her parents, her brother, her boyfriend now 3 times, and her 2 sons. The series ends with Wanda reading the Darkhold in some cabin in the mountains. So what we're supposed to know is this is someone who is able to alter reality, is super powerful. In fact, in the show, it says that her powers exceed that of the Sorcerer Supreme, and her destiny is essentially to destroy the universe. And now you have that super powerful person in isolation doing her homework, trying to bring her boys back to life. Her sons that never really existed in the first place, mind you. It's also important to mention that in the show we get introduced to Monica Rambeau, who has like Captain Marvel type of powers, and what's known as White Vision. And this is a vision that was constructed by the US government to destroy Wanda in the show, except the fake Vision in WandaVision uploads all of his memories into the real White Vision, who is still existing, and it's not exactly confirmed where that Vision is, except I would expect him to show up in this movie. It really only makes sense because it's basically reborn Vision. And huge Game of Thrones spoiler, if you guys haven't seen Game of Thrones, do not listen to what I'm about to say, but I feel like Marvel is giving us kind of a Daenerys Targaryen sort of storyline with Wanda. Over all of this time, we've been rooting for her and grieving for her, whenever in reality we may have been watching the origin story of the worst supervillain in the MCU thus far. And this opinion isn't unique to me, but I think the primary antagonist of this movie is not Carl Mordo, like the trailers have been hinting at. I think it's Wanda. Because think about it, who gave Thanos the Time Stone and allowed him to be able to kill Vision? Who knew that he was going to do that? Doctor Strange. Wanda even says in one of the trailers that he alters reality and he's a hero, but she does it, she's a villain, and that doesn't seem fair to her. I think we're going to see a different version of Wanda in this movie, and she is going to destroy some things and potentially some people. But that's basically everything that you need to know before going in to see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I can't wait to go see it. What do you think is gonna happen? I'm ready for some wild things in this movie. I can't wait. I can barely contain myself. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like it if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more.